connector and transition words. So some of them we've seen before when we were looking at the argumentative words to connect in our arguments. So what I'm going to do first is walk through the functions. So function means how something is used, right? So for the first category, we have concession. So we have although, even though, though. So those make subordinating conjunctions, and we looked at that yesterday, right? So if you had an independent clause and an independent clause, if you add though in the middle, this becomes a dependent clause, right? Because it is underneath the first part. But then with our transition columns, you'll see that it normally precedes, so it comes before independent clauses. And most of these already have a comma, so you're just going to put a comma and then have your independent thought, right? So the ones we're going to look at the most today are contrast and compare. But before we spend more time on that, we have result. So you use these for when you're talking about a result of something. So those we kind of used a little bit in our cause and effect. So as a result, you should not eat hamburgers every day, or whatever your independent clause would be on the other side of that. So then we have time relationships. So this helps you in sequencing. Not everything is going to follow a sequence, but if it does, that's what it'll look like. So these would go more in the middle, and then these normally go at the beginning of a sentence, so they'll have a little independent clause. So what does a condition mean?
What's the condition of the essay?
Yeah, so we have air conditioning, right? So it changes how it feels in the classroom. But yeah, so it has several different definitions, but here it's talking about a state. So if we have air conditioning, it might make hot space cold, so it'll change the condition. So used as a structure, a condition is going to set up something, more like a if-then statement. So not necessarily. So it is with air conditioning, like you hope it's comfortable in the room, but as a grammar function, so this kind of sets up a if this, then that kind of thing. So, for example, we could have unless you late to class, you will be marked as present, right? So this is setting up a condition, right? So if this is true, if you come to class late, you will not be marked as present. So that's what's kind of signified by the un and unless. So unless I train every day, something that happens as a result of something. So using your driving example, if you drive fast and you get a ticket, your ticket is the consequence of you driving fast.
The result.
Yeah, but it normally has a little bit of a negative connotation. So normally consequences are seen as bad. I mean, there's positive consequences, but generally when you're talking about it, it's in terms of negative consequences. Yeah. So if you wanted to use it in a sentence, you could say, I drove 20 miles over the speed limit yesterday. Consequently, I got a ticket and I have to miss class to go to court, or whatever the case is. Hopefully that won't really happen to you. Yeah. So generally it's somewhat negative, but it doesn't have to be. So it could be, I entered the lottery, consequently I won $1 million. But it, so, since we're looking at comparing and contrasting, I want you to look at the contrast box, and you can either choose to use the subordinating conjunction or the transition word. So I want you to make one sentence with one of the contrast words, and then one sentence with one of the comparison words. So when you do this, I want you to either use people in this class or use people from Matilda for what your comparison. So Knife, you could either talk about comparing Mashari to Miyako, or you can compare Matilda to Mrs. Trunchbull, or contrast. So for the subject of your sentences, I want you to either use people in this class or people in Matilda. So take out a sheet of paper and write down 2 separate sentences, so one comparison sentence and one contrast sentence. So you can choose whether you want it to be a transition word or a subordinating conjunction. So it seems like most people are getting done with this. So can we have some volunteers to read one of your sentences for class? An S first.
Hussein is my classmate, even though Anaf is my best friend.
Yeah. So that's contrasting Hussein and Naim, right? Yeah. Somebody else?
Yeah. Matilda is a smart girl, however, her parents don't care about her.
Right. Yeah. So you would think if she was smart, her parents would, you know, put her in some kind of special school program, things like that. They don't do this. Shishi, how about you?
I love you drinking ice beverage, even though I know that is bad.
Sorry, could you say the first part a little louder?
Even though I know that it's bad.
Oh, I didn't hear the first part of the sentence.
I love drinking ice beverage.
Oh, you like drinking like soda? Yeah. Even though it's bad for you. Yeah, that's right. Hasham, you raise your hand.
I like to play football. However, it's my life.
However, it's your life.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by that?
Huh?
What do you mean by that?
I love it, I mean.
Yeah, but when you're using however, that should contrast, right? So if you're having, I love playing football. However, then we need something that goes against you liking football.
Yeah, because American football is dangerous because they get shot. Because that's a real slide.
But you're saying it's your life and you love it, right?
Yeah.
So there,
He doesn't want to get hurt.
wait, you don't want to get hurt, right?
Yeah, let me see.
Okay. You want to jump in?
Hisham likes to play soccer. Even though he's afraid to get injured.
like you're on the same wavelength across seats. Yeah, so that would be one with a subordinator, but if we wanted to keep, still keep the
However,
transition, it would be, and if we're going with the not getting injured.
however, I don't have enough time.
However, he,
Does not have.
or I, we should keep the I, right? I am afraid of,
Everything.
he's not afraid of everything, he's not afraid of the ball. Getting injured. Yeah, so then we have a contrast statement, right? So, yeah. So here, in our first clause, we have a noun, and a verb, and a noun, and a verb. Alright. Does anyone else want to say one of their sentences? No?
Anas is sleepy, even though he went to bed early yesterday.
Yeah, so that's showing a contrast, right? So he's sleepy even though he went to bed early. So you would expect that he would be well rested and jumping for joy, but he's sleepy.
Mom said.
No, that's true.
So you could follow that up, right, Anas? You could say, however,
I'm sick.
I'm sick today.
But I still come to class.
And then you could add in order that, in order to learn, I came to class anyways. So you can build these on each other and kind of walk your reader through what you're thinking about, right? So these are helping show the changing ideas in your mind when you're going through things. Here we have comparison, right? So we're looking at things that are similar. So Erin's favorite things. So my two categories that I picked were animals. So horses and dogs are pretty. So here we have a horse and a beautiful dog. Animals can help you, they can help you de-stress. I guess if you had a horse in a field, it could help you plow a field. But taking care of animals costs money, right? Drawing. Yeah, especially if it's a horse, it's a lot of money. So drawing, it's fun to draw. You can tell a story with a drawing, right? And it doesn't cost much money. So you have to buy paper and pen, but it doesn't have to cost money. Any hobby can go up to a lot of money. But do you think these are good things to compare? So if I was going to write an essay, would these be a good thing to compare? Or should I change it to something else?
Change it to something else.
So why do you say change it?
Because both topics are not related to each other.
Right. So there's too much distance
Yeah.
between these things, right? So they're both things that I love. So there is a relationship. But here we have animals and here we have a hobby. So it'd be better if I had either types of animals, like a dog and a horse, or if I had two hobbies, say drawing and salsa dancing. So those would allow you to have a little bit more equality in what you're actually comparing. So we want to compare things that are more on the same level, right? So for this one, some of them are kind of different as far as the categories that I put in here. So helping you versus telling a story, like that's not really parallel either. So you should kind of have parallel categories, but also be able to make sure what you're comparing can be compared across a level, right, for individual points. So whether you're doing the block style or point by point, you want to make sure it's something that is related. So the point of this is we want substantial differences. So I looked up the definition. So it's coming from Latin, like a lot of words in English do. So it comes from substantia, or being, or essence. So it's a basic difference. We want to avoid just talking about surface level differences. So we want to talk about things that are important, right? So we want things that are basic or essential to something. So antonyms, so the opposite of substantial, we have a lot of prefixes or suffixes that are negative, right? So we have and, less, in, and un. So if it's not substantial, it's meaningless, meaning it doesn't have meaning, or it's not significant, or it's not important. So we want to make sure when we are comparing things that we're picking stuff that actually is important, not just kind of surface level, right? And that can vary with what our topic is. So if we look at the differences and similarities between the US and China, which of these things would you say is more substantial, more important to compare? So we have, for similarities, they're huge countries, right? Geography-wise, they're huge. They're both world powers politically. They both have minority groups in the population. They have a history of revolution. Many citizens use mobile phones and Twitter or Weibo if you're from China. And they also border more than one country. So for differences, we have writing systems, languages. They have different looking flags. The food is different. They have different political systems, different ideas of control and power. And then they have different ideas about what's beautiful. So in America, I would go tan to be more beautiful. In China, you're typically going to have an umbrella so you don't get dark, right, eating? And then we have different animals native to the country. They have pandas, we have squirrels, right? So which of these, if you were going to write a comparison and contrast essay, which topics do you think you should not include from this list?
Language.
You should not include languages?
Yeah. Both of languages are different.
So you're saying there's not enough to say about that? What other things are maybe not worthwhile? Would you include all these things? So this is 12 different points.
No, just few of
So normally you would narrow this down, right? So you might have a lot to choose from, but you're normally, for our purposes, are going to be writing a 3-paragraph essay. So 3 or 4 points is normally enough. So what things could you really not write too much about?
the second one. World power.
So the word world powers, so depending on how much you know about that and know about politics, if you don't know anything, you shouldn't include it, right?
Yeah.
You can't develop a paragraph if you don't know anything. What about flags? What did you think about this article? So compared Brazil and the United States, did you think its setup was block or point by point? So Miyako, can you remind us what block and point by point organization means? Remind us all.
Block is one block and another block. First block is listed or is and then point like one thing and inconclusive and same inconclusive.
Okay. So then for this essay about Brazil and the US, which style? Haji? Nordin?
Haji Nordin.
Haji, yeah. Haji Nordin. So you read about him last night. So what did it in general say? What would you say is a summary of his?
How we changed the Chinese, he writes in different language by Chinese style.
Yeah. So that, do you know mighty by itself, or might?
Yeah.
Might, model verb.
Well, we have might, meaning like if, right? I might go somewhere, but mighty means strong. So almighty is completely strong. So it's normally referring only to deities, only to gods. So somebody or something that's all powerful. So able to, control the world, things like that. So normally you might, almighty is kind of like the top in this tier of adjectives, but you might describe normal people as mighty. You know, if I'm a boxer, I might punch you with a mighty blow. It's full of power, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. But normally,
It's silent. It's called mighty.
almighty,
Almighty.
like, it sounds like A-L-L, almighty. Alright.
Allah the being God. A-L-L-A-H.
Yeah, like the
Okay.
Arabic.
Yeah.
So, it sounds like you were able to read through. So, did you think this was a comparison article? Is it comparing anything?
I think comparing the kind of drawing.
So it's a little bit comparing Chinese and Arabic, but in general, it's not a comparison, right? It's just about this one guy and his work. So what I want you to do is, we're gonna look at D and F. So on 106. So for D, these are either true or false statements. So you're supposed to correct each false statement and make it true. So for number 1, so all of them are starting out with his name, right? So Haji Noordin learned calligraphy at Harvard University. And then you would put the paragraph where you found it. So is this true or false? True. So we have 1 true and 1 false. Any other opinions? So let's look back at the reading, right?
I don't know which one is better, maybe.
Yeah. So what kinds of things do you normally compare? Like in your real life, what do you compare?
House and
2 gems.
So you might,
Which one is better? Which one had more developed machines?
okay, so a place that we might go, you said a house in us?
yeah, house or apartment.
Okay, so when you're looking for a house,
2 teams.
teams, right? So here we have our perennial soccer example of Real Madrid and everyone else.
The ability of the defense.
Food.
Food, you might compare food. Why do you normally do that?
I want to know if it's healthy or not.
Okay, so you might be concerned about healthy. I'm probably concerned about what it tastes like. I don't really care if it's
Yeah.
healthy.
So do
But I care about what it tastes like, right? So, Mayuko, what do you normally compare? What types of things? Same also, I have no idea. So, food, maybe housing, maybe purchases. So if you're looking for new clothes, that might be something.
The car,
Cars.
yeah.
So what criteria would you compare them on? Like price or?
Yeah, price or the sport car. Or,
So maybe style.
yeah,
Well.
I mean,
Right. Anybody else got anything different that you compare? What about people? Do you compare people?
Yes.
yeah.
Players, we're back to soccer. What kind of people do you compare?
If this is bad person or if this is a good person.
You might judge them on their character, so what does their behavior demonstrate about them, that kind of thing. So, for most reasons, when we compare things, we're looking to make a decision, right? So we're normally not just comparing to only
Also to
know more,
universities.
right? Normally we want to make some kind of decision with the information that we have. So this is pretty important, and you can blend it with argumentative style, right? So sometimes it's a pure comparison. We just want to know what this is like and what this is like. But a lot of times in what you read, it's gonna, even if it is a comparison, it's gonna tilt one way. So like our Brazil-America example, they did compare the two countries, but they tilted towards the countries are generally the same, right? So you could write a separate comparison essay that tilted towards, well, actually, they're really different, right? But generally, there's not gonna be this unbiased, pure, here's just the information with no opinion in it. Normally, people are gonna give you their opinion, which is helpful if most of the time we're deciding things based on our comparisons. So, what is your favorite place to eat at on campus? Anybody?
Who's home?
Where?
Where's home?
Do they have food there?
No.
Yes, Starbucks.
Starbucks?
Alright. So we have Starbucks at Wells Hall. Does anybody else eat somewhere else? that
Case
they
Hall.
enjoy?
Yes.
Case Hall,
London.
Rudy.
London?
Yeah.
Like the city, or is that
No,
a dorm one?
It's a dorm.
Okay,
Rudy.
so we have about different opinions
Schneider.
about as many different places as there are on campus, it seems.
All of our class eat in Starbucks or drink Starbucks.
No,
But they might not like it, apparently,
I
right?
don't like.
Even if
Okay,
they eat
they
it.
don't,
The
they
international
don't like
center.
it. Why they pay?
I don't buy anything from Starbucks.
So they might do it because it's convenient, right? So if we were to compare, so we're gonna do a group activity. So in a minute, I want you to get in your groups that I have here on the board. But you're gonna go through different things that you like. So if it's, for example, a hobby, Ray might say that he likes playing piano. So you're gonna come up with sentences that use our compare and contrast subordinators and transitions. So if we were a group, we might say that Naif and Hisham like soccer. Similarly, Hussein does, but then contrast sentence, however, Erin doesn't care about soccer. So you're gonna write one comparison sentence for each segment, so you'll have different topics. So you need to ask each other what is your true belief on these things, and then come up with one comparison sentence and one contrast for each one. All right, so go ahead and move into your groups,
Okay.
and then I'll come around and pass you out.
It's by column or?
It's by row. So Mashari, Ray, and Edie, Anas here with Miyako and Chishi.
Yeah.
Yes.
She good.
He can go here. So these are your four topics. So your music preferences, pets, and then where you think is the best place to go vacation, and then classes. So you're gonna talk together about what everyone thinks. So what is your favorite kind of music? So you'll like,
You mean John's what?
so Shay likes something. So you find if you have anything in common, put that in the comparison. And contrast. So say you both like something, but Mayako doesn't. So you could say, however, Morocco doesn't like country, whatever.
Like ice
So here's kind of the topics. You can all write your own version, but you can have one sentence. That makes sense. So you talk about it, and then we'll all kind of write this. So if you all like piano music, then you could say, all three of us like piano. However, Edie also likes. Whatever the Okay. So, yeah, that's good. So here's
Oak and all
Oh,
and
one sentence together that everybody needs to write.
No, and.
But it could be the same sentence.
We should write it here. We should write it here. Okay.
Say it.
likes.
Yeah, so you're gonna write one So it might be that you two
kind of
would like the same kind of music, but Anas doesn't.
I don't know how
So
to
it
say
might be
it's like
Chin
more,
and
no,
Mayako
but like
enjoying
same like German.
Anas likes.
How is it? Come on, how is it?
Country.
So
Whatever
yeah,
tastes
black
your-
and brown. Black and yellow. Oh, no, no husky.
This bit.
Front,
Oh, you're talking about pets?
different.
What kind of pet are you thinking of? Are you looking at old?
He has one.
But is husky yours?
No,
Gato is tiger. Yeah.
he has one, but he did not. This was kind of one. What is it? Wolf dog?
A wolf? Oh, those are really pretty. So they're from like Ireland and they're really big. So they're